room, died for it. Very, very painful, messed up death. But yeah, the people that made these metallic cores of plutonium for the atomic bomb, the atomic weapons program, that only probably 20 over what 400,000 people worked on the Manhattan Project. Very large scale, top secret operation that only 20 people knew like the whole full picture of what was going on with it. If you look into the history, but Battelle was the secret organization that worked on the metals. And then there was another company that worked on the photography, of this event, because they needed really high speed photography in order to capture an explosion of an atom bomb and photographs like this at a very short moment in the initial detonation of the atomic bomb. They needed very high speed photography. And this was being developed by a group out of MIT, which would form a company called EG&G. Now, EG&G, we're all familiar with, thanks to Area 51 and Bob Lazar, who claims that he was hired by EG&G to go work on top secret alien research programs out in the Nevada desert there at Area 51 in late 1988. So yeah, that's an interesting story. But again, not hard evidence of anything, as we've discussed on this channel in detail. But EG&G, it's interesting. A lot of people, don't know the whole history behind EG&G, and that they were around since the days of the Manhattan Project, and that they, started with photography. And that's basically what they did, was photography. Out at, when they were a contractor out at the Oxcart program for the CIA out at Area 51 during the late 1950s and 60s, right? They were doing photography, surveillance. They were building, surveillance cameras so that we could fly these cameras over the Soviet Union and take high definition photographs of their military installations, industrial plants, and other key infrastructure, right? So a lot of the classified research was done with EG&G, and they're experts in optics. So I assume they probably did some research with metamaterials and that kind of stuff. And the metamaterials thing gets super interesting too, because metamaterials are just freaking cool. You can make invisibility cloaks with these things. I mean, if you're talking about alien technology, why wouldn't you be talking about metamaterials, negative refractive index materials? Now, these things weren't even theorized in physics until, the late 60s. 1967 was when Victor Veselago, first had proved, with the math, that materials could transmit light and show that the phase velocity could be made anti-parallel to the direction of the pointing vector. And that's contrary to wave propagation in naturally occurring materials, right? So when Brandenburg and these other guys that we've interviewed, the scientists working on anti-gravity, talk about this pointing vector thing, well, metamaterials might negative index metamaterials might be something we want to look at for manipulating those types of things. And indeed, we had the guy that tutored me and got me into all this UFO stuff early on and back in the day was, Edgar Fouché. And Edgar Fouché, provably worked at Area 51. People have tried to get his DD-214. We got it. David Hilton got his military records and everything. And at IUFOC 1998, okay, this was on Edgar Fouché first did his presentation in 1998, and you can go back and watch that. It's on my channel. If you go to Alien Scientists on YouTube and search through my videos, you'll be able to find that video. just go to my channel and search for Edgar Fouché, 1998. You might have to scroll down because it's an old one, right? But you can go back to that and see that, he talked about, these metamaterial things. And then he came out in 99 and talked more about metamaterials and mentioned quasi-crystals and said that quasi-crystals were basically the key to how UFO technology worked. And he talked about these black flying triangles a little bit. Although I think not all his information on those black triangles was complete, because he left out a lot of information that, we found later on about the Teledyne Ryan Black Mana project and a lot of other stuff. So it's possible that, people have said, oh, Ed was disinformation. But he had some real information. So we can't confuse that maybe he was fed some, bad intel to throw him off the track. But Ed taught me a lot of real stuff about how UFO files actually work and who how Area 51 protocols and things actually work, and things that were later confirmed. Foggles was one of them. Nobody ever talked about these foggles that he said he had to wear these stupid glasses, these head things around on base everywhere he went. Nobody talked, Bob Lazar and all the Bob Lazar copycats never talked about this. But he mentioned it, said he was out there in the 70s and they made him wear these things when he was walking around. So you could only see 30 feet in front of you and you couldn't have no peripheral vision at all. And they use these to train pilots, but they also use them out at, these top secret bases. So you can't get a view inside the hangar next to you and what they're working on in there. So you can't walk by 9 open hangars and see, all the different alien technology that they're hiding out there, right? It's not doesn't happen. Nobody's given access to all that stuff. And that's the way it seems. If indeed the government has UFO materials and has been hiding UFO file stuff since crashes in the 30s,
Jeremy, imagine if we didn't drop the bomb on Hiroshima. Do you think nuclear weapons would even have come out? There were people that worked on the atomic bomb. Spouses. The mom worked on the fuse. The dad worked on the enrichment or something like that. And neither one of them told the other what they were working on. It was only like years and years, decades later, that they realized that they're working on the same thing. So when you decompartmentalize these projects like this, you can really keep a secret for a very long time. And especially something sensitive like this, it can go on forever almost. There's almost no end to it. Because if anyone comes out with the truth, even on their deathbed, they're just laughed at.
Right. Yeah, compartmentalization.
Day After Roswell by Philip J. Corso.
It's super effective, yeah, because you have guys like Corso in charge of the program because, he is not a guy that understands the science very well and was probably told a whole bunch of other stuff that wasn't true, so that if he ever came out, he'd sound like a complete nutcase. Either that or he was disinformation, and because some of his science is just off, as we've pointed out.
Right.
But it doesn't undo that's a course
one there.
I didn't know that's a course.
So Teville, we actually made those ourselves for the EMF hoodies. Had it custom made by a friend of mine's mom, who's a tailor.
Interesting guy, man. So the one of the things too is that we've learned about these top secret programs. So I want to talk about the TR3A Black Mana. It's Teledyne Ryan was the ones that came out with it. I don't know if you can find it. So this is the video that remember Tom DeLonge showed that video on Joe Rogan, and he's like, dude, if this was Hollywood, I'd want my money back. I don't know who these people are.
And for everyone out there that's with us, we will be having Stephen Bassett on in a little bit. He's on another interview right now, and we're going to get an update on the UAP Disclosure Act, or the Schumer Rounds Disclosure Amendment to the 2024 Defense Authorization Act. Apparently, there's some stuff going on in Congress right now. It's important to reach out to your senators, make sure that it gets passed, because this is one of the biggest stories in the history of disclosure.
Heck yeah, I want to play this clip real quick. This is a clip of Tim Burchett and our
Make it full screen. Knock us out. Make it full screen. Let's see what's up.
Yeah, I'm going to share the audio tab too. Boom. All right. Let's see if we can hear this.
They are.
We are beginning to find out what the government really knows about UFOs. Hundreds of people lined up outside the House Oversight Committee hearing room seeking transparency from the executive branch about all things extraterrestrial.
The problem with this issue is not science. The problem is politics.
Stephen Bassett, Washington's first UFO lobbyist, was one of them.
My life had been relatively blah. I chose this issue in 1995. I got a chance to volunteer for John Mack in Cambridge. 4 months there, then I went to Washington and said, I know what to do. If you want to end this issue, you need to fix the politics, meaning you've got to get disclosure of the ET presence, and that's what I've been working on since '96.
Randall Nickerson was the first in line. He came from Tennessee and had been waiting for the hearing since 9 p.m. the night before.
I've seen things, friends of mine that are pilots have seen things that are not explainable in any conventional way. So I think it's something we need to ask questions about and find answers about. They can keep the national security stuff fine, but they should just let us know that there is something out there other than us. I'm glad to support the people that are taking a risk by telling the truth.
Biologics came with some of these recoveries.
Yeah. So back to Steve Bassett though. He's got this. What is it called? The Paradigm. I'm trying to get these
Paradigm Research Group. The Paradigm Research Group.
So let me just share this window again. This Mac.
You go to paradigmresearchgroup.com. .org. O-R-G.
And then that's different from Danny Sheen's Paradigm Institute, right?
The New Paradigm Institute. Yeah, I was wondering about that because they have a very similar name, and they're both disclosure activists in Washington, D.C. So,
okay,
that's Dan Sheehan. He's
got the Romero Institute and the New Paradigm Institute, and then we have
Paradigm Research Group. Yeah, that's him. That's Stephen Bassett.
Yeah, Stephen Bassett. So I've been getting his email since I think like 2009. I met Stephen out in Colorado. At some of the UFO conferences going on out there, and they were rallying behind this guy, Stan Romanek, who I just was like, you guys know this guy's full of shit, right? And then it blew up in their face pretty bad. But I'm glad I didn't get involved with Stan Romanek and all that crap back in 2009, because he took I remember this guy Jeff Peckman was trying to get in Colorado.
Wasn't Romanek involved with some sort of water-powered car or something like that? Or
no, that was Peckman. That was Jeff Peckman, and he had got this kit for the one of the HOH kits.
What was Romanek doing?
We installed the kit on his car for him. Me and my friend who who has the patents. I remember I talked about my friend that had the patents similar to the. That's not Jeff.
I think I heard of a Romanek. He had like kids with extraterrestrials or something like that.
Yeah, this guy. He was a UFO disclosure activist. He still lives in Denver. Yeah. Jeff Peckman would be great to have on the show to see what he has to say about all that. But yeah, he tried to, what did he apply for? United States Senate. Yeah, he was trying to become a Senate, but he only received 0.3 of the votes. So it didn't do very well with the public as far as, a policy platform. Unfortunately, he wasn't, and also he had gotten tied up with some of these other UFO people, which just added to the stigma of this topic,
So who was the guy that everyone was supporting back in Colorado when you met Bassett?
Yeah, this guy Stan Romanek, and he had this Denver alien video that he used to sell on his website, you know?
Yes, I think I watched his documentary. He claimed that he was taken aboard and
He said he had the most documented UFO case, abduction case in history, and he was the best UFO abduction guy. I remember camping outside this dude's house out in Red Rocks. I think it wasn't Rick Nelson's house. I forget whose house it was.
You
but
camped outside of Romanek's house.
Romanek was there, and they said he was going to get abducted that night, and so like I was sitting there waiting for we were waiting with it like hidden up in with like I had a camera and everything. We were hidden. We were going to try to record the whole thing, and anything we could, but we got nothing. I remember we camped out there all night thinking, secretly.
Did he get abducted anyway? Like, did they sneak
No, they
past him?
said that they didn't come. They're like, oh, they didn't come and get him that night for some reason. It was a crazy story, dude. Yeah, this was when I was out in Colorado in 2009, and then I remember like I just felt something was off about this guy because when I went up and talked to him, and he was just trying to sell his book to me, and he wasn't like. I remember he had these equations that he wrote down, and he said that these were the Stan Romanek equations, and he said that the aliens gave him these equations, and he wanted to figure out what they meant. So I went on a mission. I'm like, what are these equations, and what paper? They look like anything, and I found a Hal Puthoff paper on polarizable vacuum, the Hal Puthoff paper on the polarizable vacuum effect, and it was all the exact same equations, just copied like backwards, like he looked at it in a mirror.
Wow.
It's the same exact equation, so I was able to match that up.
Oh, okay.
They don't have
Sorry.
that in there.
So, guys, I've been doing research in the background. I'm not finding anything about the Schumer Act being blocked yet. Now, it looks like there was an assault weapons ban that was blocked. I don't think that was tied to it.
Yeah, but this is the kind of stuff. Let me just finish this point, and we'll go back to the Schumer amendment thing right now. You're good call. But Stan, what they did with him is that they got all these politicians and all these disclosure advocate people behind this dude, and then he got found guilty of like child porn in 2017, and like it just like
they put an end to it.
Yeah, it crushed it all, man. So but anyways, they've moved on. That was old news of my first experience of when I was involved with some of these guys out. But Steve has nothing to do with that. Steve was just trying to get on with disclosure and but unfortunately there's a lot of bad information and bad actors out there posing as disclosure people or legitimate sources of information that are just trying to sell books or grift and whatnot. It's sad. But yeah, so
I mean, it's possible that he also had good intentions and just had a couple, skeletons in his closet.
Maybe who knows? Maybe
the head of MUFON, the head of MUFON got caught up in one of those sting operations with with the FBI. They have a girl.
Oh, that was Jan
Harzan. Yeah, Jan Harzan got caught up in one of those sting operations.
Yeah, MUFON. The guy of MUFON, Jan Harzan. Yeah. And then also, did you know about this guy from PES Wiki?
Well, Sterling Allen.
Allen. Yeah, he got caught up too.
That because I knew Sterling. I worked because I was doing American Anti-Gravity, the poster there on the wall, and I handled the gravity stuff, and then his organization PES Wiki was basically owned all of the energy reporting at the time. And
yeah, they did.
Unfortunately, and I say this unfortunately for everyone, the allegations were true. So and I don't want to go too deep into it, but
no, let's not. Let's leave that. Let's let sleeping dogs lie.
And so in his case, the last I heard, and Sterling, during his time he did wonderful reporting on new energy, free energy, all sorts of breakthrough energy stuff. He had some issues. Stress was a part of that. right? That was definitely, I think it exacerbated some of the issues that he had, but there were some other things that were going on there, and I believe he is, or at least was for quite a while, in federal penitentiary, and the allegations were unfortunately correct. So
All right, so this Schumer bill. So apparently, there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens in Washington with these bills, and apparently they put a bunch of crap in this bill that was to turn off all the Democrats and stuff. Let's get into all this stuff. Oh, we got a $20 super chat here from Adam Hatfield.
so
Opinion, it's too vague unintentionally, which would render the bill impossible. Getting sued by the intelligence communities, resulting in even more clarification and less info data release. Endgame. So
I've been looking online. I was just on Chuck Schumer's Twitter page, and I've been looking through news feeds and the whole 9 yards. I'm not seeing anything about the UAP Act being shot down. Now, maybe it
It's
was.
not being shot down. So what I heard, this was from Dan Sheehan on this X live audio call that they had just ended an hour or so ago. What happened was some senators intentionally put some amendments to the act that pertain to things that, social issues like gays' rights or something like that in the military, stuff that they knew would get thrown down. But when they throw it down, when the Democrats, vote against it, it gets thrown to committee. And when it went into committee, now they're trying to destroy the Disclosure Act by removing the eminent domain and the panel and the things that actually matter to enforce it. Also, the power to subpoena. Those are the things that we really need, because this act, without those things, is meaningless. It's just words on paper. It doesn't have any power.
Okay. Well,
and we've seen the same thing with the JFK assassination stuff. There was a Disclosure Act for that as well, and it's 40 years later. We don't know what happened.
Yeah. No, I appreciate
Yeah.
you sharing that, and I think, my thought is that we will learn far more details about this in the next, few days, probably. Right. This will probably start to blow up. I think one of the biggest things that is worth expressing, and I think that the government is playing with fire on this, is trust in government. American trust in government, according to Pew Research, is currently at 16%. And that trust in government is not just because of UFOs. In fact, it looks like it bottomed out. It went below 30% during the Barack Obama administration. Looks like the financial bailouts of 2008, right? When the crisis happened, they bailed out like GM and all of the financial companies. It looks like that was what really kind of tanked it. But that notwithstanding, it is sunk down to 16%. So the research question they asked people was, do you believe that the US government is basically doing the right thing most of the time, right? So it was pretty vague to begin with, and that, to me, what that says is people do not trust the government. They don't trust the government. And so for the government to play games on things like this, they do so at their own risk. And that's not anything I control. I'm just Joe Average on the street. But by looking at this Pew Research poll, I'm saying, look, if you're polling Americans and statistically they're saying we don't trust the government, that's not good. That leads to repercussions from the American public. Again, that's not me saying anything. This is, I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what'll happen? But I know that this does create chaos during things like this last election, the next election cycle, right? Regardless of which side of the fence you're on, both parties had real beefs with the last election. And when you dig down below the surface, a lot of that came down to the fact that nobody trusts government. So that's a problem.
That is a big problem. Yeah.
Yeah, it's become a serious problem, because with everything that's happened in the last,
it's hard to trust anything nowadays. AI has the ability to make images instantly that can look very real.
Yeah, but even an AI government would be more trustworthy than this government, I
Well,
believe.
I mean, if you want to get into extremes, right? Like, and I've seen this quoted, like, so I guess the Pizzagate thing, and you know, was it the underground pedophile ring at that pizza place in Washington D.C. and I think that came out of 4chan or something like that. You get these extreme conspiracy theories. Now that I've said that, I'm sure I'm going to get like lots of emails from people saying, no, it's real. But you know,
Yeah,
that,
well,
that
they put out fake versions of that. See, there was real stuff going on, right? And then remember the guy that wrote the hit piece article on that, like, and the CNN was turning out to be saying that that was all fake too, and then it turns out that half those guys were all pedophiles.
See, but the way
You
that
know?
what I see there is the problem is when you lose
Guys,
that
Stephen
trust in the
Bassett is
government.
here.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah. I'll be right back, guys. I'm gonna use the restroom real quick.
It's crazy, and then they have the hearings recently where they still won't name Ghislaine Maxwell's co-defendants in that trial. So a lot of people don't trust the government, and we're not expecting answers from them at all. So
Stephen,
Yes, sir.
should we trust the government?
Let me put it this way. If we got to a point where no one trusted the government, you want to leave the country. Find someplace else to live because you won't want to be here. It would be bad.
where do we go, though? I mean, there's nowhere.
There are a lot of countries I've got scoped out. I'm sure I could be happy in many places, but we're not there. Obviously, the vast majority of people in this country essentially trust their institutions. However, the percentage doesn't have to be a majority. You get 20, 25, 30% of the public that have lost faith in government, you're going to have a lot of problems. And we're there easily. This is an issue that is more than just the truth embargo, which is a 76-year lie of rather dramatic proportions, and has contributed greatly to the lack of trust in government. Almost nobody believes the government on the subject now. It's 98%, 95%. I mean, if you get a square question, do you believe the government's telling the truth about this phenomenon? It's 95%. No, I don't believe it. That doesn't mean they care. It just means they don't believe it. But that becomes inculcated. They lie about this, they lie about that. You don't mean to care about those issues, but the fact that they lie gets inculcated, and pretty soon you don't believe it. And things break down. Institutions break down. Things get worse. The worse they get, the less you believe them. And the government's also suffering because without the trust from the public, they can't get things done even if they want to, and so they can't fix anything. And then people get mad at them, and it devolves. You know, it's like one of those things. It's like a plane that gets into a spin at 30,000 feet. Okay, and it just continues to spiral all the way into the ground. That's kind of where the U.S. is right now, and a lot of democracies have already gone that way. We don't want to go that way, and we need to fix it real soon.
So, Stephen, what's the latest on the Schumer-Rounds amendment? Is it going to pass? Is it going to have teeth?
It's certain that the Schumer-Rounds Act, rather, which is the UAP Disclosure Act. You like that name? That wasn't an
Schumer-Rounds Disclosure Amendment. Yeah.
That's the name of it. It will pass. Now the question is, what changes will take place? I'll be talking about it at length. I've got a huge Q&A tomorrow on UAP Max with Danny Sheehan. We expect a pretty big audience. I think it's multi-platforms, YouTube, whatever the hell. But anyway, it's Danny and I Q&A tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern. There's three things that are at issue. But the most important thing about that is this. What Schumer and Rounds did with this. Besides creating a bill which is 2 or 3 times larger than all the previous 3 bills combined, and each one got bigger, all right, is essentially finally confronted the managers of the truth embargo, or the people inside of it. Finally confronted them. The other bills did not. Trust me, not even close. No president.
So it really is historic here. This is something new.
Yeah. And so how did he do that? What did he do that Carter didn't do, that Clinton didn't do, that the previous 3 bills didn't do? He went right at the heart, right? And I think he intended to do this, but if he had any doubts or any qualms about doing it, David Grush put those away. David Grush will go down in history, not simply because he came out and told something that was pretty extraordinary and was able to back it up, because the timing in the middle of this end game where it could have gone any number of directions. He was not supposed to show up, but he did. And the government has nobody to blame but themselves. But in a way, I'm kind of glad the government handled it this way. But they knew about him for almost 2 years. They knew he had information. He was providing it to the intel. They knew he was having problems. He was getting harassed. They knew he went to the IG office for the intelligence community and all of that. They knew his record. They knew he was substantive. And they knew what he had to say. He even went to Arrow inside, trying to do the inside thing. And Arrow was not set up to deal with David Grush. Arrow was just set up to exist until disclosure. It's simply set up to exist. It's not supposed to do anything. And Sharon Kirkpatrick was not supposed to say anything. But so he couldn't speak to Grush, which just made Grush more irritated. And finally, David Grush made a fateful decision. And one of the reasons he was getting threats. There was no way the IG's office could stop that. I mean, they could tell so-and-so and so-and-so, don't do that again. But believe me, if somebody wants to threaten you, they've got so many ways they can anonymously threaten your life forever. Any woman that has ever gotten a restraining order knows how useless ultimately they are against a determined individual. And let's face it, the people running the truth embargo are pretty damn determined. And so he'd had enough. And so he talks with Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal about doing the article. He talks, I imagine, either they or he talked with News Nation, a very logical choice, but maybe others, about doing the interview. And I believe, and I'm sure they'll correct me if I'm wrong, I think they wanted to go high end. I mean, they wanted to go as upscale as possible. But the fact is, the higher up you go, the more risk and liability these entities face. So the New York Times or the Washington Post or ABC News, the story that he wanted out now, he wanted it out right away, is so big that they got to vet that thing. I mean, they got to vet it. They got to talk with the lawyers, because if they screw it up, they're going to get sued into the next world. And there just wasn't enough time. They couldn't do it. And so the debrief did. And so Leslie and Ralph wrote the article there. Again, that article, plus the one in December 16, I don't know how the Pulitzer Prize thing works, but they should get a Pulitzer Prize. I mean, it's a no-brainer for me. But maybe they will. And so they got that. And then News Nation, which is an up-and-coming entity, a lot of money. Ross Coulthard, top journalist. They got the interview there. June the 5th, boom, they dropped an ontological bomb into the middle of the whole truth embargo process and the whole disclosure process.
Well, now, Steve, if I could, let me ask you a question. Because you have been following this, you probably know far better than I. Who is behind all of this? Who do you know who the entities that Grush can't name in public are? Because
sure.
I mean,
well, I mean, I know he said exactly. The Grush is pretty straightforward story. He's working for the UAP task force, and so under the law, the registration. And by the way, before I forget, I don't know when the show's going to end. I'll do as many hours you want to do because this is what I do. Okay? But possibly before it ends, depending upon whether you have any breaks, I'm going to put 4 links up on my website. Okay. And these are links to the 4 legislations, the 4 UAP sections of these 4 acts, the 3 passed and the 1 pending. I've converted them to a much more readable format, and I've highlighted them. Okay. And so you can then go visit them maybe before we're done, and you can browse. But when you read these bills from beginning to end, you start to realize how huge this is. Anyway, the Grush thing. Look,
I got a question for you.
Steven, I got to finish answering Tim's. I got to answer Tim. It's an important question. Grush essentially was approached by people inside with information because he was working at the task force, UAP, which was the job was to get information. It was in the bill. All right. And so maybe they didn't expect this. But the point is, some USAP guys got in touch with him and said, look, David, we're working on crash vehicles and we've got dead bodies. This is known. Everybody, I mean, so many people know this already, but yeah, it's true. We're working on that. We want you to know. Now, obviously, Grush was, I think, probably a little stunned. This is where it gets important, and a lot of people just forget and didn't connect the dots. Grush had been in intelligence for years, several entities, well connected. He has a lot of connections in the intelligence world in multiple entities. And so he started calling up some of his contacts that he knows, people that are under classification themselves. And all he wanted to know is what these people telling me true. And quite a few of them said, oh, yeah. And that's all he needed. And so he goes to the Intel Committee, and the Intel Committee's going, whatever, but it's a little early. So they can't go, yeah, David, come on in. Whatever's going on there. And he backs off. That's fine. I mean, I'm sure they listened, and I'm sure that they considered that he would be using them. But it wasn't time yet. And in the interim, the threats started coming in from in his world. People he knew.
Now,
so
when
he
you
goes
say
to the IG's office to get relief, the IG office gives him relief, and then he doesn't get enough protection, and ultimately he goes public. So the people that he's referring to are all people under classification. They're not ready to come out, but I know some of them are going to testify when the time comes in front of the Intel Committee. But now he can't name the names of the USAP people, and he can't name the names of his contacts in his previous entities that confirmed it. And people are expecting him to do all that. They have no idea what it's like to be working in these levels with these kinds of classifications. They expect them to just, I don't know, just run out and strip their clothes off. It's nonsense.
Do you feel like there's an organized disclosure that's on a timeline? Does this feel like this is on, because you've kind of alluded to that, right, a couple of times. So I'm just curious.
Well, there is a timeline. It's a government timeline, so one shouldn't be shocked that it's not organized. It's not overly organized, but yeah, there's a timeline in the sense that the sentiment within the government was increasingly, in terms of the individuals, was increasingly moving towards disclosure, and it became thick enough that 10 people made the decision to come out on their own as private citizens and go after the issue, right, to possibly effectuate disclosure. And those 10 people were the 10 people in the To the Stars Academy that went up on a website October 11th, 2017. The moment I read their bios, I knew exactly what was going down. Okay. And then 6 years since then, 3 of the people have played particularly strong roles. The others have kind of stayed back. But they have been critical in advancing the process. And so that's kind of on a timeline. And I think the process will get disclosure in an orderly fashion in the right way. As it happens, based upon what I know, they had put everything together and were kind of ready to go, expecting Hillary Clinton to win the election. And Hillary Clinton's all about the ET issue, even though she's, tried to held back. But I worked very hard to force that issue on her in the campaign, and it helped generate 400 articles connecting her to the issue, which I'm sure she wasn't thrilled about, but it wasn't hurting her. And so she was going to be the disclosure president. Her husband was not allowed to be because the Department of Defense told him to go to hell. And it was obvious. They knew this. And so they probably intended to launch shortly after the election and have that already underway, tic-tac videos, whatever the hell's underway, New York Times article, and then she goes in the White House. What do you think's going to happen? Boom, bada, boom, disclosure. Didn't happen. Stretched it way out. And so the timeline, whatever it would have been, is subject to the vicissitudes of history. And history's a bitch. And let me tell you, it was tough. And they will eventually get tremendous credit for ultimately making the decision, rather than just go back, keep their mouth shut, get some of those fine post-retirement contracts, live well, enjoy life. They decided to come out anyway on October 11th of 2017, and the rest is history. Now, the closer we get, the more this script starts to take shape. But it's not like a script to a play or a movie where people have been rehearsing for months. They know their lines, they know their marks, they go out. It's not like that. It is more of improv. In other words, the various entities, the White House, the Congress, the DOD, whatever, all the various entities kind of know what the script is, sort of, and they're working it. In other words, they're kind of doing what they think is appropriate as they move forward, which means it's a little messy, and it's subject to a black swan event, which was David Grush. So is there a director? No. Is there some Deus Ex Machina that's making all this happen? No. Are the ETs driving it specifically? No. It is the inevitable outcome of keeping a lie about something that's visible to anybody that can look up in the sky for 76 years and managing to keep it going in spite of the evolution of the internet, social media, mass communications, 5 billion cell phones, the podcast revolution. I think you know about that. Well, it's over. It's baked. One of the movies that affected me the most when I was young, really kind of messed me up, was The Graduate. Dustin Hoffman, Catherine Ross. If you haven't seen it, you got to see this movie. But to see it when I saw it back then,
Mrs. Robinson
messed me up. And there's this wonderful moment when he's in the kitchen with his dad. He's telling him all his plans about how he's going to win the heart of Catherine Ross, who was one of the most beautiful women ever. And his father looks at him and says, you know, this plan doesn't seem fully baked. And Benjamin comes back, oh, it's totally baked. Well, that's the truth embargo. It's baked. The cake is baked. And all we have to do now is take it out of the oven.
Well, that's definitely the impression that I get. It seems like it seems like there is a surge of momentum that is moving forward. So, Steve, you know, it is a pleasure to finally meet you. You probably don't know me, but I
know you on social media. I mean, I see your stuff all the time.
Oh,
sure.
Okay. Well, I was doing defense interviews in 2017 when this story broke. And you know, as I've said many times, like I had ruled out UFOs. I was like, you know what, this is mythology. There's nothing here. It was my defense contacts who started poking me. Hey Tim, pay attention to this. And at first, you know, being kind of thick in the head as I am, I was like, no, come on, guys, just ignore this. And they're like, no, Tim, pay attention to this. So, you know, this confusion, I guess, this momentum that's moving things forward, but also this confusion about what exactly is happening. It's in the defense community. It's in the DoD. It's all over the place, right? This is not like a monolithic entity. So in a weird way, it's like we're all going through this together, I guess. And then maybe a small group of people like yourself actually have a good idea of what's going on, and the rest of us are just playing catch up.
Oh, well, I can't keep up with it. I'm overwhelmed. Believe me, I can't keep up with it, and that's all I do. I can barely keep up with the news articles coming out, which I have been, you know, I curate them and I put the appropriate, decent journalism. I say professional journalism. I'm not biased. I'm up to 15,000 and almost 1,800 for this year, the most ever. 1,800 articles on this subject.
It's been drip for years, and suddenly it's like drinking out of a
fire hose.
Yeah, fire hose.
And that's why it feels like it's, you know, I've read that, like, when the right time comes along for anything, right, you just can't hold it back, and it feels like it's the right time for this now. It just feels like it wants to be out there, you know.
Well, maybe it was the right time a long time ago, but if you mean it is the end, it's the final. It's like when a dam breaks. When's the right time for the dam to break? Well, never, right? But when it breaks, you need to be at high ground, right? That would be ideal. And the skeptics that are standing out downstream saying, yeah, I'm not going along with this when the water comes down. Well, too bad. So yeah, it is the right time now. It's late. It's very late. This should have happened much sooner. There have been some efforts. It just didn't happen. We have been dancing on the edge of the volcano, and we're hoping that we'll be able to get through this rather extremely difficult time we're in. And I'm not talking about the truth embargo now. I'm talking about the fact that our civilization, quite frankly, is on the edge of catastrophe. Right? And look, I saw 2012. It's the ultimate catastrophic movie. I mean, there's no bigger catastrophic movie than that. It's not that, but it doesn't have to be that. I assure you, 2012 was, you know, really bad. This isn't that bad, but it's more than bad enough. And so for those that, you know, that don't follow these things or could give a crap or have interesting theories about it, yeah, fine, it's okay. Well, but I'm following these things. I've got a science background. I understand the global environmental issues that are underway. We're very well aware of the threat of nuclear war and many, many other things. And a lot of people are also commenting on this, high-level people, very sophisticated. And what they're basically saying is that we're screwed. We really are, unless we take some rather dramatic measures, and we can't. We just can't. We cannot do anything, right? I'm telling you, somebody could go out tomorrow and shoot 500 kids in some sort of elementary gathering or some school, kill 500 of them. And in the following months, we wouldn't do anything. And I can just click that off one after another. We're on the verge of nuclear war in at least 2 genres, possibly 3. DEFCON is at 2 in Europe and has been for some time, right?
Yeah.
Could go to 1 at any moment, which means a single tactical nuke gets used. The risk of terrorism nukes is greater than ever, and terrorism general is about to explode, folks, in case you have flying, plans. All right. The situation on global warming, hot, cold doesn't matter, right? 2 feet underwater does. And so the numbers are, for those that care to look and don't just get their news from QAnon, is that global warming is going to create a diaspora of people unlike anything the world has ever seen. Right? You're talking millions of people leaving the coast. And right now, hang on, let me just get rid of this. I'm going to decline it. I think we already have an immigration problem now around the world, okay? And it can get 50 times worse than that because the sea levels are going to rise. Not a long time ago, now. And then the warming is going to be driving diseases north. You're going to have malaria in America. You're going to have more tick diseases and on. And I could go on and on and on. We have put everything off to the point where technically on paper, we are absolutely screwed. Except we have a whole card. One little card left to play. And that is the disclosure card.
Now, is there something about disclosure that is going to scare the American public, do you think? And that's something of, well, I mean, so the way that I look at it, this is just my bent, right? But I'm a giant fan of Carl Sagan's Contact. I prefer to believe that we're part of something that is larger and more wonderful than we've imagined in the past, right? But
wonderful movie.
But then I also wonder, what if one of the motives behind this disclosure is people will be genuinely freaked out, right? I mean, who knows what that might be? Maybe abductions really are happening, like the Whitley Strieber community has said for years.
Oh, they are happening.
I mean, so that's the kind of thing. If that comes out, that could be pretty difficult to.
Well, I'm familiar with the abduction phenomena. Okay. And what ETs are doing with the contactees. Without picking sides here, and I am not picking sides, quite a few journalists in Israel, or journalists who went to Israel, and also some journalists here, were shown the unedited footage of what took place on October 7th, or was it November 7th? November 7th?
October 7th.
October 7th. And I assure you, I'm not taking sides, folks. I assure you that what those films show makes the contactee experience look like a party. All right. So if people are going to get freaked out, they need to get freaked out to what human beings are capable of doing at any time. That's what they need to get freaked out about. And they're not doing anything about it. They're going out of their way to ensure there's more awful things like that. There's so many absolute calamities going on in the world that you can't keep up with them, and most people are not even aware of some of them because they keep moving in front of each other. Okay?
Although from a DoD perspective,
we try to concentrate back onto this Disclosure Act. What can we do as political activists? There's about 330 people watching right now. What can they do to help pass this act? And what, who can they call? What can they do? Is there any political activism that can help the disclosure movement at this time?
Well, there's been plenty of activisms going on, obviously, right? And the public is probably engaging it at a very high level right now compared to normal times. There's no question. The bill has galvanized people. And so now that it's, showtime, people say, what can I do? I'll tell you, what you could have done is, and I'm speaking to like several million people, is like funded the hell out of the activism back 20, 25 years ago. You didn't do that, right? It's like, hey, yeah, you want a hobby, do your hobby. But now the things are going to happen. What can you do? Hey, I have a simple answer. I like Twitter. I love Twitter. I don't care who owns it, right? Screw with owner. I don't care. Twitter is one of the most powerful things that has ever come along in terms of what we'll call political activism. And
that's why the CIA and the FBI had their hands all over it.
Of course. But that just shows how important it is. And so, and by the way, my handle is at Steve Bassett. I have 33,000 followers. I'd like to have 66,000. So, folks, which can I say? And so, there is a simple way, and I think it's amazing how many people don't understand this, that you can pop it. And here's how it goes. I have sent out. It's up on my Twitter. You can find it on my Twitter. You can find it on my Facebook, where I've posted this. I've also sent it out to my list. I should maybe put it up on the front of my main website, but it's simple. If you're on Twitter and you would like to send messages such as, we really appreciate this bill, we want it passed as is, please do that, reconcile it, whatever, and give us that. Hang on, that's when I'm supposed to go to bed, but obviously that's not going to happen. Hang on, and just get rid of that. Come on, come here.
No sleep. No sleep tonight, Steven. So
No
I have a
sleep for
question.
you, Steven.
Come here, you little. Come on.
We got
This
to
phone-
work 18 hours a day
This is-
now because the
phone
disclosures
drives
in
me
high gear.
Well, and Stephen, I may pester you in the next week or two for an interview too, if you're open to
No,
it.
that's fine. This. Hang on for a second. What
It's
am I
great
trying
to
get-
reconnect with you
I'm
again,
trying to
Steve.
get to my friggin'. I know. Okay, well, hang on. I'm almost there. Yeah.
Gonna sleep. I'm just gonna. There he
Steven,
is.
you
Sorry.
muted yourself.
I
My website.
unmuted him.
There we
Am
go.
I muted?
No,
I
you're
muted
all
you.
set
I
now.
muted you
You're
till
all
you
set.
got it figured out, and then
Okay,
Mark
okay.
tried to unmute you and me at the same time. So it.
Mute wars. Okay, so every member of Congress, with the exception of about 5, has a Twitter page. No DM, but Twitter page. Cool, huh? That includes all the conferees that are currently reconciling the two versions of the bill. And so on my social media, I put the link out. I've also sent it out to my list. I'll try to get it up on the front of my main website, paradigmresearchgroup.org, paradigmresearchgroup.org. And here's what you do. So what I did is I listed all of the handles for the Democrat and Republican members of the conference. Only the House side, though, because most of the pressure is coming there. It's not coming from the Senate side, and I couldn't get the Senate conferee list yet. If I do, I'll add those. And so it's just a list of the handles of the people that are actually in there debating this bill. And so what you do is you open your Twitter, and you do Twitter tagging, right? In other words, you go at Senator so-and-so, tweet at Senator so-and-so. We really would like that bill to be passed as is, all right? We appreciate all the effort you put into it, blah, blah, blah. Praise whatever you can. Thank you so much. Bing, and post it. And if you want, you can have the same message. You can go right down the list, and you can go at Bing, post, at Bing, post, at Bing, post. But you have to tag them, at Senator, at Representative, whatever. And what happens is that message goes to their notification, not their top page, not their news feed, but their notification section, because they're tagged in it. And so what happens is they have a staffer that checks those notifications, checks in to see, because that's where they find out what people are saying about them on Twitter. And so the person goes there, and it sees this huge, long list of messages coming in about the UAP bill. So they go to the member, and they say, sir or madam, you should check the notifications. We're getting a whole lot of messages. So they go, they open it up, and boom, they're scrolling out there. Hear all this? Okay. What's easier than that? Right. And the beauty of this, as opposed to a phone call, which, a million phone calls, you just piss them off. Emails, fine. One person sees it, may go somewhere, may not. Forget letters. I mean, my God. What's great about this is that when you tag it, it turns up on your page. Okay. And so people are cruising around your page, and they see the message, and they go, oh, you did that, right? I'll do that. So it has a virality to it that none of those other have. And so I've been pushing this for a couple of weeks. So the fast, immediate way is to start Twitter tagging the people that are in that, and I have the thing up there on my website, on my social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and I'll try it. So Steve Bassett, look me up. You can probably find it. It's not that old. I put them up, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 days ago, and I'll try to get it up on the front of my page. That is the thing you do. Now, praise mostly. In other words, praise them in the sense of we really appreciate you're engaging this bill, but we want it to pass. If you want to get tough, you can. You can say, look, you sons of bitches, we expect that bill to pass as is. Now, the problem with that is that by and large, it's much harder to get a reaction from somebody when you troll them or when you shade them. They just resist. Okay. I understand that like tens of thousands of those that might get it. That's not going to happen. And so mostly you want to say, I understand you're working on the bill. So glad this bill is in play. We really want it to pass as is. I'm sure that's what you want to do. Things like that. And so they're getting praised for doing something that they weren't necessarily planning to do, right? And there'll be a few negative messages and so forth. So, yeah, that's the bill, and that's its regular form. But what I've done is I've converted it into a little more readable as a PDF, and I'll have that up shortly. Now, this bill is unbelievable, right? I can talk about the bill if you want, but it's unbelievable. This bill is the most important legislation possibly ever passed by any legislative body.
Well, no. So even if they do gut this, as people have said, this bill is still passed, right? It's just the enforcement.
Well, what's gut? There's 3 issues. By the way, I didn't actually finish that up, and that's let me go. This is very important. Schumer punched the truth embargo in the nose. Here's how we did it. Because of Grush, he had to make a move on the ET Tech issue because Grush outed it, right? Any reasonable person listen to Grush go, hey, you got ET Tech, and that domain is about in private hands, like Lockheed Martin, right? It's not about government hands; it's about private hands. So basically, he confirmed there's ET Tech hanging around in government companies or whatever. I mean, civilian companies. So he outed it. So Schumer had to make this move, and it was brilliant. So when on July the 14th, just 12 days before the hearing, where Grush repeated what he said under oath. Right, he announces that he, the Senate Majority Leader, not a member of the Intel Committee, and Mike Rounds, who's not on the Intel Committee, Armed Services. So there's like different, this is outside the Intel Committee. We're putting a big chunk of wording in the bill. In fact, the original bill as submitted was about 1/4 the size. 3/4 of the bill is what Schumer and Rounds put in it. And what was the first thing he says? He says we are putting an eminent domain clause in it, which states that the United States government owns all that ET tech you've been hearing about, all that non-human tech belongs to us, the people. And eminent domain doesn't mean that you're sending stormtroopers out tomorrow to raid the offices. It just means that you have the right of eminent domain if you choose to exercise it. So he's basically saying if we want that tech, we're going to get it. But he's very generous. And the bill says that you got, I think, 300 days to come up with a report explaining all the tech you have, right? Describe it, explain it. Nice report. That's going to come through the pipeline that this massive bill is set up. And we'll review it. And we may decide, yeah, I think we need that tech right now. Eminent domain. Well, why was that a punch in the nose? Because these companies have been waiting a long time for the truth embargo to end. So they can take all that tech they've learned and all that science they've learned, patent the hell out of it, and get richer than God in service to the shareholders of these fine corporations. Okay. The government's saying, no, this is something that really should accrue to the people's good, which doesn't mean that it just takes it all away. No, what happens is we take eminent domain, we come in, and then we look at it and decide, how can we work with these companies to create extraordinary things? They make money and the people benefit. Eminent domain, we take it, screw you. No, it doesn't mean that, but that's not the way they look at it. Okay.
Yeah.
And so he basically challenged them on something that they had been counting on for some time. Boom, punch in the nose. But it gets worse. The bill includes massive subpoena power. And it gets even worse because the subpoena power is going to designated key members of Congress and committees, right? Who, in addition to getting subpoena power to pull anybody out of the truth embargo world and have them come and talk to them, It includes a full classification level, meaning that includes the review board. These individuals are being given, under that law, the absolute total classification level and special access level, which means that these individuals can go to any base, go down to the 51st floor underneath that base, go up to an office and say, we want to see what's in there. And if the person in there says, go screw yourself, the next thing that happens, a bunch of MPs are going to break the door down, cart that person off, and he's going to go to jail. That's what it means. They have that level of classification, and they have subpoena power. Well, let me tell you, for those that were very comfortable down there and hoping they could stay there forever, not thrilled about that. So that punched them in the nose, right? Subpoena power, eminent domain, right? Wow. That is what the battle is about. The review board is not that big a deal. It may be a bargaining chip. And so what Schumer has done is, one, he sent a message to the truth embargo and all those in it that we're serious. We're going to end this regardless, just letting you know. Okay, if you don't think we're serious, you certainly know it now. Message number two, all right, that we are essentially also serious about the truth embargo ending, and we are making some serious demands on you. But the most important thing he did, he smoked them out. In other words, for the first time ever, nobody has done this before. None of the previous three legislations have done this before. He smoked out the people in the truth embargo world, the managers, the tech people that are working on the technology. He forced their hand. Because of that bill, they had to come out of their hidey holes. They had to come out from their secret world and engage it. Now, when I say that, I don't mean they personally went up on the hill and said, hey, look, I'm working on a craft right now, and God damn it, you're not getting that craft from me. No, what they did is working through intermediaries who then are able to address and get in touch with the members of the reconciliation, those members of Congress that they know to be favorable to the civilian contractors and what have you, and they are getting them essentially to fight for their interest. But you see, it's obvious that's what's happening. And so they have just outed themselves and created this amazing situation where if it turns out they have to give up this eminent domain, which is what Tim Burchett told me. He thinks that Mike Rounds is going to be the good cop and Schumer the bad cop. And it looks like Rounds wants to give him the patents and basically says, patent anything, patent whatever you got, get rich, okay, but we're keeping the rest. So the contractors are going to be saying, thank you for allowing us to patent the non-human technology. In other words, in order for them to win, they basically have to confirm that they're sitting on the non-human technology. In other words, truth embargo, goodbye. But that doesn't mean the president will do it, but the president at some point has got to do it or it's going to get totally out of hand. So they can't win. They're either going to have to give up the tech rights, at least initially, and on an eminent domain, or they're going to have to virtually help lock down the truth embargo and end it. And so this is genius on the part of Schumer. All right. And so that's happening. But let me be clear. The subpoena power, and it could be the eminent domain, was a bargaining chip deliberately put out there by Schumer to have something to bargain with. It's a hell of a chip. But I assure you, they want that subpoena power out of that bill. Because they do not want to have people called to testify. Anybody can be called up. And so if they pull the subpoena power out of the bill, the message they have sent, if they succeed, is that the forces of darkness are still strong enough that they've just gutted the bill. That guts the bill. The rest of stuff is fluff in a sense at that point. You have no ability to get anybody technically to do anything. All you've got is a desire for them to report or do this. And so they've gutted the bill. If that happens, it's game time. And it's time to go to what John Lewis referred to as good trouble. Not crossing the Pettus Bridge and getting the hell beat out of you, but rather internet good trouble. And I'll be part of that. And I have other colleagues who will be part of that. And what do I mean? What I mean is this. A lot of these people in those underground facilities and the members of Congress that tend to hide out a lot have no idea the power of social media. They have no idea. There's some big shot, super duty, wealthy people, superstar types that have found out because of 8 or 9 women they abused 20, 30 years ago. And the internet finally came up and said, goodbye. And boom, blown away. And so they don't understand it. They got that bill. And I tell you, the internet is going to, as Decimus Maximus, the general of the Northern Army and leader of the Felix Legion, said in the beginning of that movie, unleash hell. It's going to get really unpleasant. You talk about your phone calls, talk about your emails, absolutely. Twitter, absolutely. You're going to talk about podcasts in which, fire-breathing guys like me are going to come on, raise holy hell. We're going to be targeting certain individuals we know that defended it. We will make their life awful. We might even go down and sit outside the offices, put up some chairs, get some Jersey mics, and just sit there and yak for a while until the guys come and take us away. Not exactly a protest, but good trouble. You know what I'm talking about? This will not stand. Okay.
I'll tell you what we're doing, Steve, because you're first meeting Tim Ventura here. Tim started this American Anti-Gravity group way back in the day that got me really down the rabbit hole studying anti-gravity and the whole classified physics that people wouldn't believe. It would take your professor 2 years to catch up with, all the technical information that we've put together on. I have a technical briefing on UAP where I just go into everything from Operation Paperclip. The Nazis had metamaterials on the.
Yeah, this brings up another. Jeremy's actually he's kind of alluding to a really important point, which is
hell of a PowerPoint.
If a new era of openness happens, this allows the scientific community, this allows hundreds of thousands of people with knowledge, skills, and expertise to participate in helping the DoD and the Lockheeds of the world and all of these companies to fully develop this, right? And
Absolutely.
We've seen the computer industry has shown us what the civilian world can do. The internet originally started out as a military network, but now that civilian companies are involved, it has permeated every aspect of our lives, and it is a million times more complex and wonderful than it could otherwise possibly be. So this technology would be the same thing. Is if there's openness that is involved, I have a feeling that it would blossom into something that is far greater than anything that could be developed behind closed doors.
Of course it will. And by the way, that's one hell of a PowerPoint. And secondly, there are so many groups forming, I can't keep up with them. Again, it's a little easier to, maybe put it this way. People are motivated. A lot of people do have basic money. They don't need millions, but whatever. The groups are forming all over the place, particularly scientific type groups, been a number of them. There's now 7 or 8 registered lobbyists. Danny Sheehan's think tank is underway, New Paradigm Institute. It's gotten some decent money. Eventually it'll raise millions. PRG will soon convert to a nonprofit and become a boutique think tank as soon as they get about $2,000. And then you've got, and then another think tank is Gary Nolan's Soul. This is basically a think tank focusing more on the technology and engineering. Let me tell you, Gary is a serious dude. They've got some big time players. There are plenty of groups at higher levels that are clearly preparing and know how to engage the post-disclosure world. And at the lower levels where we hang out, we're also getting things together because we're preparing for the post-disclosure world. My job is to help as many people as possible prepare for the post-disclosure world. That's why I'm Mr. Podcast. And if I could get on CNN, MSNBC, and some of these shows, which have been staying away from me for years now, I'll get that message out further. You either are going to be ready or not. Now, corporations that don't know what's going on should be talking to Richard Dolan and me and many others. Bring us in as consultants, and we can help you understand some of this, unless you really think you know it all. But most companies and most people, when disclosure comes, it's going to be, what just happened? And then they're going to have to adjust. You don't want to wait for that. You want to get ready. You want to prepare. You guys are doing it. And so you're going to have great fun. You're going to have an exciting post-disclosure era. I hope that you get funding. I hope you expand, because it's you and many others that are ultimately going to lead society, the whole global society, forward in this new time. Now, we want to take the world in a certain direction. And overall, most of the people I work with are roughly thinking along the same lines. There's other people that want to take it in other directions. Okay.
Star Trek versus Star Wars.
Exactly. There are people who are saying, great new tech. How can we weaponize it? Okay. Who's gonna rule space? China said at one time it thought it could own the moon. Whatever. Are we going to be doing that? Are we going to have some sort of ET weapons development war going on? And on and on. I can go. There are people that just will not be able to give up our ancient heritage as incredibly violent and divisive beings who make everything what am I trying to say? It's all binary, right? Now, that's not even the word. Yes, no, good, evil, black, white, right? Everything is in that way in the Western thought, particularly, and so you can never find a middle. It's all or nothing. This is taking us to perdition. Now, so all of that's going to be in play, and time will decide who has the greatest effect or who has the greatest influence, and it's going to be across the spectrum, from basic people doing their jobs but are starting to voice their interest in the post-disclosure world, which, by the way, is also and not accidentally going to include and be the post-artificial intelligence world, the world in which machines will in fact be able to do everything a human can do and do it better is just a few years away. And so both of these, well, that's a whole nother paradigm shift that's happening at the same time, which I don't want to get into it, but it is. And so as if we have enough on our plates. But again, if you have a different way of thinking and worldview, suddenly, instead of being your enemy, a paradigm shift becomes your friend. There are ways to use artificial technology that improves the life of everybody on this planet, that can help us in countless ways. And there are ways to use it that will lay waste to the lives of billions. What do we choose? Well, you know, our tradition is, hey, you lay waste, man. That's what we do. We lay waste. What does they ask Conan? What is the one thing you must know? What is the one thing you must do? You must drive the women and children of your enemies before you, or whatever the hell he said. That was a very significant moment in that movie, right? You must see the women and children running before you as you destroy their civilization. This is what's coming. Now, as it happens, if you're going to be dealing with advanced species, maybe 1,000, 2,000, 20, 30,000 years ahead of you, having AI could be a help. Because in order to be able to interact with them, maybe even to absorb what they can help us with, AI is going to be able to do it far better than even our top physicists. So suddenly it becomes a communication, interconnection technology put to good purpose. But there's plenty of people out there that are prepared to lay off every single person in their company because they can make 5 times as much money if they can get in and do it. And they're just wringing their hands and they can't wait. And the politicians could regulate, but again, did I mention early before that we just can't fix anything anymore? We just can't. We can't fix jack, right? So I'm not optimistic about AI, but we've got disclosure. We've got the ace in our hands. And the way I like to think of disclosure is this. It's my current metaphor. I'm very pleased with it.
Okay.
Imagine the maintenance guy to a huge apartment complex, 1,000 units. Guy's got a key on a belt. You know? It's a master key. He can open the door of every single one of those apartments. Hopefully he's trustworthy and a good guy. But he's got to have that key, right? Disclosure is a master key that opens thousands of doors that currently are locked. And so once we get disclosure, we got a key to open door after door after door after door. And behind every one of those doors is an option, an opportunity, a different view, tech, you name it, thousands of them. That's why this is the most profound event in human history. Nothing else comes even close. And so suddenly we can go through doors and be able to see and do things we simply couldn't do before, which means we could suddenly decide to fix things, right? Fix things. Now, a lot of people give me grief over this. Steve, you're such an optimist. We don't fix it. Let me just give you 2 examples that I used to talk about in my PowerPoints when I used to do 200-slide PowerPoints. I don't do that anymore. These are so simple and so common sense
that nobody will buy it because it's too obvious and too simple. Antigravitics. All right, antigravitic beam. I'm a big fan of antigravitics. I'm going to join your organization, whatever. I got a degree in physics. Okay, here's the deal. We finally get antigravitics in play because disclosure has taken place, and Lockheed Martin is coming up with some fine craft, and they're going to make them available at a very reasonable price. And so with antigravitics, we build container ship, I guess you could say. It's kind of like it's like you have with the trucks at the ports. All the trucks just flatbed. They just pull up and they take these containers, stick it on the truck, and it drives away. It's amazing to watch. I used to live next to the LA port. Unbelievable. It's kind of like that. Only the truck is antigravitic. And the container that sits in it is holding what? It's holding nuclear waste. You see, one of the many, many problems we can't fix that people don't even want to think about is that nuclear waste is piling up all around the world in massive dumps, in big oil drums, underground, above ground, leaking. And any terrorist with 34 pounds of C4, they could slip in there and stick it in that dump, a whole state would not be habitable. They'd have to move to another state. And that's getting worse and worse because there is nothing we can do about it. There's some scientists that think they can come up with a bacteria that will eat it. I'm not optimistic. They were going to take the whole damn stuff and put it in Yucca Mountain. They gave that up years ago. Not only because, well, the Indians weren't thrilled about it, too. No state was going to let them move this stuff across the state in the rail cars. And they were afraid if they filled it up that much, the whole damn thing would blow up and blow up America. We haven't done a thing about it. Antigravitics, baby. Put the waste into that. Take it up into orbit, little rocket on it, fire that baby into the sun where, Elon Musk's Roadster will eventually end up. And you take another one, and in probably 6 months, you've gotten rid of all the nuclear waste on the planet. Problem solved. That's what I'm talking about. But let's go further. Global warming is going to take us down pretty soon, right? Trust me. It's worse than generally thought. The really bad stuff they don't want to talk about because, hell, nobody will believe the bad scenario. So how in the hell are they going to believe the worst case scenario? Here's the deal. The planet's too warm. You need to cool it down. Now, it's possible that some genius decided the way to do that is to block sunlight by putting particulate shit up in the upper atmosphere to reflect it out. There may be some truth to the chemtrail. Chemtrail's a bad term for it. But there may be a truth. Actually, I think they tried this. Dumbest thing they could possibly do. There's nothing you can put up in the sky like that. It's not going to screw the animals below. It doesn't work. So how could we possibly regulate the temperature on this planet? Because we know from history that there used to be glaciers over New York, which is not good for the tourist business. And we also know that the sea level has been 50 and 60 feet higher. That's not going to fly. And so it's only a matter of time. But in fact, thanks to human activity, it's getting real close. How do you fix it?
Steve, I was going to ask can I get your email in chat? And then I will reach out and schedule an interview with you too.
Okay. Let me bring that up. So I'm turning the chat on.
Tim, I can send it to you. Steve, how about using anti-gravity to pull Earth's orbit farther away from the sun?
No, that's a little much. That's a little much. That's a little much.
That's incredibly dangerous.
I got a much easier solution. You got anti-gravity craft, right? So here's what you do. And actually, there is a company that is making this, in a sense. They're making these things. All you do is you use the anti-gravity craft to take panels and put an array of panels in solar synchronous orbit. In other words, they can maneuver. And the way they operate is that they're put in a place and they're able to maneuver. So as the sun goes through its elliptical orbit, they continue to move, so they're always between the Earth and the sun. Okay? And they're very conveniently movable and what have you. And so what you do is, if you need to cool the planet, you have enough of an array that when you turn it, it starts to reduce the total amount of sun energy that hits the Earth. You can drop it 1%, 2%, 3%, whatever. You do what you have to do to cool the planet down. And then, if for whatever reason we start to go into a cooling era and a potential ice age, you just switch them another way and you reflect a little more light in. I mean, this is simple as it could be. And some things like, it's like a sunshade in front of a pool. I'm getting a tan. Okay.
It's that simple. We can't do it now. You know what it would cost and how long it would take to do it with, SpaceX rockets? Forget about it. With anti-gravitics, we could assemble a system like that in probably a year. And all of a sudden, there's no more global warming problem. And it's clean, and it doesn't pollute anything. It just drops the temperature down just enough.
And
now, I have a theory about
solar
that.
collector on the moon too, and harvest that solar energy is. And
Well, there's all that. I mean, there's energy harvesting. I'm just talking about cooling the friggin' planet, right?
Yeah,
And I
two
have a
birds,
hunch
one
about
stone. I mean,
I
but
have
the problem
a
is
feeling
getting it up to space, and we need the gravity technology.
Yeah, anti-gravitics. With anti-gravitics, it's no big deal. So I have a feeling that there's a lot of people inside the tech world, in the classified tech world, that know full well we could do this. And this is one of the reasons why they don't have a fire under them to deal with this issue. And this is going to irritate people. Meaning, you're knocking on the door, right? What can we do? What can we do? And they're going, hey, look, I can't tell you this, but we got the solution, right? Just a matter of time. We just need to get the truth embargo out of the way, and then we'll bring this, we'll fix it. So since we know it's going to be fixed, we're in no big rush to fix it. But we can't tell you that because we can't tell you why. And so the world is wringing its hair and going, carbon taxes and whatever, recycling their brains out and basically drive themselves arguing, like this over what are we going to do about it. The government's going, no, we'll fix it eventually. This is, as the Italian would say, a lack of respect. Okay, a lack of respect. They don't respect us. And they've told us that in so many ways. You don't have a right to know. You don't have a need to know. You can't handle the truth. We got no respect. I have a feeling that's true. Anyway, those are just two simple examples of fixing massive things easily just with anti-gravitics without getting into countless other possibilities. We could go on and on and on. And yes, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I actually have a child that I have to get to bed, so I probably need to bail out for this evening. It's been amazing talking with you. You have so many incredible ideas. Jeremy, thank you. Thank you for inviting me on your channel, sir. It has been absolutely amazing. Wonderful experience.
I'm glad you guys can finally meet. Now, Steve, you got to promote this APEC conference, man. If we can get the scientists to talk directly to us, we don't need the government or any of this to have disclosure. We can just do it ourselves.
Yeah, I saw some links. Go ahead and send me more. Send me the goods. When is the conference?
I think our next one is the 23rd. That's kind of the next structured conference.
23rd of this month?
Yeah. Well, we do one every month. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Jesus, holy mackerel! I can't keep up. Look at this.
Yeah, we've been busy.
Hello. And is this like an online thing? And you actually have a physical location?
Yeah, no, it's
our first
all,
one.
It's all Zoom based.
We interviewed Mark McCandlish right before he died.
No kidding.
We have some great material here.
Okay, this is high level. Okay, all right. Look, what can I say? Forgive me if I'm not up to speed on it. I just can't keep up. But you're there already.
We get all these people to go in front of a team of engineers and physicists and like I go and reach out to experts in these fields to come on and ask like real hard questions.
It's a community based conference. It really is, and we've really had the who's who of emerging propulsion. I mean, Jeremy is like presented many times, right? That PowerPoint that he showed you was just one of many that he's done. But yeah, I mean. Ron Evans, like from BA Greenglow, Nick Pope, you see he's down there.
He was on the BBC a month after he was on APEC talking to the BBC about the British anti-gravity programs.
Roger Scheuer,
No, this is serious. I got to ask you this question because I've been following this particular list for 26 years. And I cannot read equations. I have a degree in physics that they don't even teach it anymore. I think it's all been invalidated. But again, science guy, whatever. So at least I have a bent there. But I'm following. And of course, I'm talking about the list of Jack Sarfatti. Can't read the equations. That stuff is as complicated as it gets. But guy's all about anti-gravitics. Would he be a speaker that you could bring on if he wanted to come? Or
yes, Jack has been on. He's been on several times.
Jack's been on? That's all I want to hear. Okay. All right, but look,
I'm the reason I got Jack hooked up with Danny Jones to get on Danny Jones's
Steve,
podcast and put him out to the mainstream audience. So
was he
Yeah.
able to talk about it in lay terms? I mean, did he actually was able to give it a reasonable lay term discussion? Because in terms of the normal physics discussion, it's incomprehensible. Was he able to do it?
So sometimes it comes and goes. It comes and goes. But
he did
We
a
have
pretty good
other
job
speakers that are
on
better at that.
the other night. Yeah, he's been.
yeah,
he's
and
been
then
doing better.
Mark is on. Mark is doing lab demos too all the time.
I do
all the
like
time.
experiments over here. We're trying to figure out how it works and
lots
actually
of
build it.
experiments. So yeah,
What are your?
I'm actually
what
in
are
my
your-
lab right now.
It does look like a lab. I thought it was a
Yeah,
kitchen. No, it's a lab.
No, this is not a kitchen. This is a lab.
Okay.
We have the hood over here.
We're
3D
cooking up some
printer.
anti-gravity and
Yeah.
What are
Actually,
your-
we're making a crystal. And we're going to
Okay.
hit it with a bunch of light. That's going to make a triplet state electron that's going to interact with a piece of aluminum and orient the subatomic particle spins. And we think
I
that's
knew
something
that. I knew that. I knew you were going to
Yeah,
do
of
that.
course.
Look,
Yeah.
what are your plans? Look, in terms of post disclosure and so forth. I mean, you've got the basis for any number of things here. I mean, could you convert and try to go 501c3 think tank, convert APEC into a kind of think tank, scientific entity, try to get some serious funding, or do you just want to stay as like a media thing, or what?
I mean, my plans in terms of the research that we're doing is to build flying saucers and sell them commercially. In terms of all propulsion, probably 501c3 is a cool way to go. I'll have to talk to Tim about that. Me and Tim created APEC together.
Well, again, what you're doing, I mean, good, but we're talking money here. Have you got thoughts about how you can really fund at the right level what you're doing?
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons that we kind of got it started when we did, and this is something I'm sure you've seen, Steve, is the people, the legendary figures in our community. Not just that, but the Cold War era scientists who worked with big power and stuff like that. The people who know this, a lot of them are passing now. We're losing that knowledge. We're losing that information. And so that's a big part of this conference, has been trying to educate a new generation on what's come before.
Okay, here's something I can do right away. You know where there's a lot of money? Hollywood. My God, Barbie did $1 billion. Actually, I think it's been $1.4 billion something. I watched 10 minutes of it. I could hardly keep myself there. I started to have hallucination. Oppenheimer, on the other hand, one of the greatest movies of all time. So, but tons of money, right? Here's what I want you to do. One, I want you to send me your logo and give me permission to get it up on the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance website as an affiliate to the HDA. All right. And then I'd like all of you to become founding members of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. Right. You'll have a bio up, you'll have a photo kind of saying what you're involved in. Obviously, you're involved in advanced UAP stuff. And thus begins the connection, the networking process that could lead you to talk some people in that town that could give you the money to do any damn thing you want. And because you guys are really operating at a much higher level.
But we're already past that. Money isn't the issue, Stephen. Actually, the best equipment I've ever gotten, I got for free. I got the RF generators from Sandia National Labs that they actually used to work on anti-gravity research back in the 70s. And I got them for free because I was there in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where they were throwing them out. And this shit works brand new. I like almost no hours on it. It has a little ticker. I got a whole pallet of them. I paid $500 for shipping, though. Money is not really the obstacle here. It's really getting the right people, the right minds, and everyone together into the room and working on it.
But you're basically saying we're going to get them together for free. They're going to do it all volunteer. They don't need to be paid. They're just going to make all this happen, and it's like a commune thing. But
more like Linux. We kind of approached it like Linux,
Yeah.
So
okay, open source anti-gravitics. Look,
But yeah, I would say let's touch base on the Hollywood disclosure thing. I mean, but
again, it's open to you. I can't. We need to get some more film industry people on board before I keep adding more UAP people. I've got 40 UAP people, in a holding pattern over Glendale to 10,000 feet. I can't land them because we've only got 22 film people. But Mark, let me just say something. I mean, what you're doing is, I'm thinking Steve Jobs and his buddy in the garage, and they don't need much.
Think Elon Musk, because Elon Musk started. He's building rocket engines in Hawthorne, California. I'm in Hawthorne, New Jersey, with Falcon Space, and we're building anti-gravity.
I just want to mention this, and I'm not trying to be a downer. All right. Very soon, disclosure is going to take place. And entities with more money than God, and also doing stuff behind the scenes already, are going to come into this like giant elephants, like tanks, and just roll through this. And that's who you're going to be competing with. People with billions and already a lot of research, hundreds of scientists. It isn't maybe a Steve Jobs moment here. He had a special opportunity. The earliest days of the beginning of the computer revolution, he rode that wave to glory. This isn't that. This is the end of a truth embargo that's going to unleash a tidal wave of interaction by the wealthiest, heaviest duty people. I think you need to be thinking a little more along the lines of, we can't have too much money. And one of the things you have to offer right now is a story. What you're doing is a fantastic thing. There's content here, a series, a movie, a doc, whatever, or just something sophisticated enough that somebody that's made, I don't know, 100 million on the last movie may say, look, here's $5 million. Show me what you can do. I would not turn your back on that. Again, up until disclosure, it's cool, man. But there's a reason all those contractors are fighting like hell against eminent domain. They are sitting on a shitload of stuff. And as you probably know, and I've said, I think, and I've said many times, the evidence, I think, is pretty confirming. The government already has anti-gravitic craft. They've already solved the problem. They've got the craft. And so you need to say, what can I offer them, or what can I offer short of that? It's going to be a crazy wild time, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities, and anybody that knows something about it's in the field has great opportunity. But in terms of being a leader, a major component, no. But a player, yes. But the days of, as I said many times recently, I like this phrase. It comes from Hunter Thompson from a long time ago, one of the great journalists of all time. He had a phrase that was really one of his best. He said, when the going gets weird, the weird turn pro. And that's what has to happen now. This weird world we've been in, all my colleagues and all the people I've known, they have to turn pro. And those that turn
you're
pro,
right about that. You're definitely right about that. Yeah,
are going to get washed away. I just went to 2 conferences, right? And they were, again, we're in this transition thing where the floor is changing underneath. 2 huge conferences, easily lost several $100,000 because they didn't know how to work it in this situation now, right? They made many mistakes and they lost a shitload of money. On the other hand, do it right, they could have done well. Everything is changing underneath us. And so when I go on these podcasts, when I talk to people, I have one fundamental thing I'm doing. I mean, my job is to get disclosure, but that's basic. That's almost rudimentary. The fundamental job that I have in my last years is to get people ready, to get them involved, to get them prepared so that they will be able to deal in the disclosure world. And they can't start too soon. It's pretty late in the game. But they have to do that because this paradigm shift is so huge. It's like finally when the wave arrives and they're looking at it and it's like 50 feet high and they've got a basic one of these 7-foot surfboards and they're going, holy shit, there's no way I can ride that wave with this board. It's going to be that big. You got to get a bigger board, right? You got to get as much together as you can. You guys are doing fabulous stuff and I can definitely help and promote you and ever. That's no problem. But in terms of, it's a little late for venture capital money or whatever. But it's not too late to set up a 501c3 and be prepared to take some tax-free juice. It's also not too late to start making connections in Hollywood. And I say Hollywood, I mean the whole film industry. Because the film industry, which has made somewhere in the range of $200 billion since 1952 on fictional ETs, because I've researched it. counting everything, product sales,
Fictional's the
TV
problem,
rights
man.
and shit.
Hollywood is all about fiction and propaganda. So I
And
just
they've
doubt that
never
they'd be
allowed a
interested in that.
documentary on the subject to be given full distribution, distribution on a big screen. Never allowed it, right? Because that would be the truth embargo. That's all going to change. The film industry is diving into this. Money is going to be going and flowing. Connections are made, and it's not just money to do a project. There's people and activists in Hollywood with loads of money that often they'll give millions of dollars to some environmental project. You got something worth looking at. You got something worth funding. I have no access to venture capital world or Silicon Valley, but I'm building a pretty nice little network into the film industry. If I can help you use that to make the connections, it could change your life. Not that you're not enjoying your life. I think it's fun doing these things in DIY. I get it. And it would be incredible if you really came up with something. But again, there's a problem here. The government's already got it. They've already got it. And there's going to be lots of people that are going to be hired, are going to be involved in working on this after. Oh, God. Oh, absolutely. Same thing in the energy issue. If they have an alternative to fossil fuels, those that are out there working on the alternative fossil fuels, well, they got a problem. However, the industry that will develop, the industry that's going to build all of the, quote, extremely efficient, non-polluting energy tech, it's going to be massive. I mean, it's going to billions and trillions of dollars going to be spent on this. And we don't have to burn fossil fuels anymore, and our electric bills will drop 95%. Wonderful. But the industry is going to be huge. And so one is either prepared for that, or like some of my colleagues, they're going around, the country trying to find a garage inventor that's got the answer to it. They figured it out, and they're going to trot it out in the driveway and show you how it's over unity. No. It's time to turn pro, guys.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to be such a, I'm just saying.
Well, Steve,
I love you. I love you guys. You're wonderful.
No, it is wonderful. Again, it has been wonderful. I am overdue to put the child to bed for the night. So thank you again, sir.
Alrighty.
And
I'm willing to stick around while you take care of the son. Yeah, okay. I don't have any kids, which is one of the reasons I can do what I do, I assure you. All right.
We both have kids and we're able to do this.
Then you are better men than I, my friend. I don't even have a dog or a cat, because if I did,
I have a dog too. Dog's here. But I do agree with you on the whole thing about going pro. It is necessary. They do have a massive head start in this, and
they do.
I just want disclosure to happen. I want to see these craft. I want to build them, design them, help make them happen.
Sure.
And whatever I can do to make that happen will happen.
Post-disclosure, particularly as the tech emerges, you're going to see one of the greatest eras of startup companies ever. It's going to be rival, if not exceed, the early days of the internet revolution. Hopefully it won't have a bust like that, but of startup companies everywhere, because new tech means new ideas, new possibilities, and all of that is convertible to companies and making money. And so anybody that's got the savvy, got a good group, got connections, knows how to network, and so forth. Hey, startup city. And it's going to be a time when, the venture capital people, whatever, you can walk in, sit down. Okay, fine. You want 20 million? You got it. Here, the next guy. I mean, it's going to be like that. And I'd be thinking along those lines. I wish I was young enough to be able to jump in on that, but I'm not. But I'd love to see others do it. My time is almost over. So my startup opportunities are pretty much gone. I'll be happy just getting nice lectures and making some real comfortable money that allows me to take a cruise once in a while. I'd be happy with that. But you're going to see a startup revolution unlike anything ever. It will make the dot-com revolution look pale. Okay? And you guys I like your position, right? I like what you're doing, the contacts you're making, the media abilities you have, plus the tech. I mean, really, you've got the ingredients for something special. So send me the links to APEC. We'll chat. We'll communicate. I'll get all of you, including Tim, in my system if you're not there, and I don't think you are. Follow me on Facebook. I'll follow back. Blah, 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 blah. And also, I am going to put up the links to the bills, hopefully right after this. And you can, pass that around, and people can go and read these bills in a comfortable way. That and you read these bills, you start at the first one, and boy, by the time you get to the third one, fourth one, you're going, whoa, this is real, right? This really is real. They're not. This is not a game. It isn't a ruse. It isn't a false flag. It's the real deal. The government, or at least the government we care about, has made the decision. It's time to end the embargo. Thank God, because I ain't getting
Well,
any.
we've been talking to the scientists for like 3 years now, and I've been interviewing and bringing these people out of the shadows for even longer than that. So we're well beyond the issue of whether the phenomenon is real or not.
Of course, no, of course.
And I'm just, I've seen enough that goes back to predate a lot of the technology that, like as we discussed, is this all human tech that's been covered up, or is there alien tech in there too? And I think there's evidence for that I've seen for both of these things. I mean, we have cases where we've recovered UFO metals and they've gone into a black box and a black hole within the government, and we have the documents and files on those things.
Sure.
So it's it's an interesting rabbit hole when you start digging into it, and the military contractors that are all based in the same states that are fighting this most,
Not surprising.
have given
Not
the most
surprising.
opposition to these bills.
If you're
So-
a congressperson from one of those states, and those companies are going to make $1 gazillion, that's tax revenues, baby. Right? Your state becomes a hot property, and if you help make that happen, your political future is sealed. I mean, we're getting down to some nitty-gritty politics. And by the way, this is one of the most nonpartisan issues that ever in history, and it's remarkably stayed that way. Almost nothing along those lines, except recently, and that is that. And he had his reasons. Chuck Schumer was really the first politician to come out and partisanize this issue. And he did it with respect to the reconciliation bill. I don't know if you saw it, but he gave an interview where he's saying they're pushing back at the bill, and it's the Republicans that are doing it. And so the moment he said that, he made the issue partisan for the first time that I am aware of in the whole time that I've been on it. Am I mad? No, I'm not. I understand why he did it. I think that he felt that the sentiment of the American people, the wanting to know the truth about this, is pretty damn high. The issue is nonpartisan, and so while he's mentioning the Republicans more as a matter of fact, meaning that's who's doing it, right? And we know that. It's Rogers and it's Hunter, Turner, and two key chairs in the House. So it's just a matter of fact, and I think people will look at it that way. So it's not so much partisan as is, but it is a move that hopefully won't be too much of a problem. And if it helps get the bill intact, my God, it's great. And I know that after this bill is passed, even if it's diminished somewhat, I think that he and everyone else will return to the nonpartisan status on this. It's extremely important this remain nonpartisan. It is the one thing, particularly in the coming campaign, where these men and women who, believe it or not, with few exceptions, in their homes when they're just being themselves, are actually pretty cool people that you wouldn't mind having dinner with. But once they get in the political arena, they make asses of themselves to a degree. This is really rather spectacular. And so, but they're actually, capable of intelligent and thoughtful stuff when the issue allows it. And almost no issue allows it now. There's almost nothing that hasn't been politicized to death except this issue. And so if we get disclosure quickly enough from the president, which means we need the hearings right after the 1st of January, then this nonpartisan issue will literally course through the entire campaign, which potentially could be one of the most bizarre, weird campaigns of all time, and one of the most nasty and most expensive. But it'll be coursing through it and just sucking the energy about all that negative stuff into this purely nonpartisan thing that everybody benefits from and has no real political hook. And it'll allow people to actually behave. And the American people would benefit enormously from this if they could just see their politicians competing and talking intelligently about something, the same issue. It could take a lot of the venom out of what is coming. And so that's just a near-term benefit, which I'm happy to mention because, I'm a political activist. So again, as I've said countless times now, we'll say again tomorrow, right now history stands on the shoulders of Marco Rubio and Senator Mark Warner. They are the chair and ranking member of the Senate Intel. The Senate Intel is the one that has to hold this hearing, right? I mean, Tim Burchett would like to hold another one, but fine. I hope if he does, fine. But that is not the hearing that's going to allow disclosure. It has to be the Senate Intel. It could be Armed Services, but they are not in the game. They have stayed out of it. They gave it to Intel. It's the right committee. And so these are the only two people that can call that hearing. The president can't even call a hearing. It has to be them. And so history is on their shoulders. If they call,
I just followed that Twitter link for an update, and apparently Brad Crispin is writing that the 2024 NDAA conference report is out, and it does not include the agreement does not include the provisions that would establish an independent review board, a review board staff, eminent domain authority, or controlled disclosure process. Basically, they're gutting.
No controlled disclosure process?
Yes.
That was 50% of the bill.
That's what I just read on Twitter. This is from 15 minutes ago.
Oh, fuck. All right. Well, I'm not going to sleep tonight. If that's true, I'm not sleeping tonight. This is not going to be good. That's a friggin'. Oh man. If the controlled disclosure process is out, I think the subpoena power was part of that. So the subpoena power is gone. If this is true, folks, get ready, because the gloves are coming off. If this is true, then it's time to get serious. So I'll check on it. Thank you. Thank you for ruining my night. You could have told me tomorrow. You could have sent me an email.
Hey, man. I know. We could have just let him sleep tonight, man.
Oh, God. Well, look, I'll tell you.
I mean, Stephen, this is like the culmination of your entire career right here.
UAP Max tomorrow. Me and Danny, Q&A. I think you want to be there. We're going to have a pretty large audience. I think it's going to be pretty intense, because Danny can get even more intense than I am about this. And he's going to probably be almost uncontrollable. We're going to have to get some guys with nets, standing by. So, okay, I'll check it out.
You better take some melatonin and get some sleep, because otherwise you're going to be out.
No, I am going to get. Yeah, I'm going to get some sleep. It's okay. Hey, look, guys.
Thank you so much for
I'm
talking
thrilled
to
about
us, Steve.
APEC.
It's great to reconnect with you, man. I appreciate all your work and everything you're doing for to get the word out there, and also your expertise on these legal matters and Congress word and language that I don't understand always and have been confused about. So thanks for clarifying all that stuff for us. And people, if they want to check you out, they can go to your website, which is
paradigmresearchgroup.org.
And that's not to be confused with the New Paradigm Institute, which is
which is Danny Sheehan's. That's exactly right. And that's a very substantial site, and that's going to be a big deal. And
you know Danny Sheehan too, right?
Oh yeah. I've known him for a long time. And he's an extraordinary man. Read his bio. Go to his website and read his bio. He has his first part of his biography called The People's Advocate is out. He's lived 10 lives. I mean, if I had just the right parents and an extra 10 IQ points, and some support from some teachers, maybe I didn't have that. Danny did. He's had an amazing life, done extraordinary things, and he is in this hip deep. He's up on the hill. He's having 10 times more access than I have, naturally. And so he's been involved in the bills. He's been involved with Grush, Luis Elizondo, the DOD, and he was more pessimistic than I was. And so I'm going to get it. I told you so. If what you've heard is correct, and then Danny is going to go ballistic, because he, but better than I, knows where a lot of bodies are buried. I mean, he is seen up close the awful shit that the U.S. government has done over the years and the political class. He's seen it up close. He took it personally. And so God knows what he's going to say tomorrow if what you have said is true. So it will be, in other words, what we're going to probably start doing tomorrow is firing up the engines. In other words, we're going to basically put out the battle call, if you're right, and begin the good trouble. We're going to find out who voted against this, pressured that, and we're going to rain hell down upon those members of Congress. And they don't like it, they can go to hell, right? Because they've just taken the teeth out of this thing completely, and just like we said they would, we were calling this out. People were saying this was going to happen.
That's why I put together this meeting today. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
they're about to take it out, and that's what happened.
Thank you for doing that, Mark.
During the call, it happened.
I didn't think they could pull it off. I didn't think they had the balls. But let's face it, we have some of the most insane people in Congress ever. Yes, go ahead.
Everyone needs to go to war starting tomorrow.
Dan Sheehan, I heard on a live Twitter thing before. What they did was they were very tricky about it. A couple of the senators put in some aspects to the bill, bullshit stuff like no gays in the military or something like that. Something they didn't really care about, but they wanted the backlash from the Democrats. So that then the bill gets rejected, it goes to committee, and that's where they're going to cut up the Disclosure Act. That's what they did.
Wait a minute. It's when you say it goes to committee, it's already in a conferencing. It's already a reconciliation conference where they're trying. So they haven't actually agreed to a final language. They're sending it to committee for further consideration. Because normally what happens is you reconcile the bill and then you send it to the House and Senate for reaffirmation. But you're saying they haven't fully reconciled it. They've sent it to some committee to settle some issues.
Yeah, that's what Dan Sheehan said, and this was a couple of hours ago. And so you probably hear more about it. You're hearing from somebody who does not understand this.
No, I understand, but generally, I'm not happy. I think you're probably too close to the truth. It's only 9 o'clock there. I think Danny's on the West Coast. I'm going to call him now. So, gentlemen,
can we get him on the call? Can we get him on the call?
No, I wouldn't do that to him.
No, let him know. Let him know we want to talk to him though, and
sure.
I've been trying to reach him too through Tyler Zaradnik. Put me in touch.
Has he ever spoken on your show?
No, he hasn't. We've been trying to get him on, but I think he because of his affiliations with Lou Elizondo and some of these other people that maybe someone's telling him not to talk to us.
Well, has he specifically turned you down, or are you just not getting a response?
No, he just hasn't. He just has not responded back to any of my requests.
You leave it to me. You know, you leave it to me. I take care of it. Okay, I take care of it. It's all right. Let me see what I can do.
I appreciate that.
All right,
Brian.
guys. Okay.
And we're doing important work getting these scientists on the record and asking them the right questions, and it's also helping sort out a lot of the people that say that they worked on this stuff and they didn't, because then they're not willing to come on our show. It says a lot about their story, too.
You clearly, just what I've seen. I knew that you were there. I knew, and I heard that. I sort of noticed that's interesting, but it's science, right? And I'm not going there. I don't deal with that now. But now that I'm acquainted, look, I mean, this is great work. Clearly, you're organized. You got a lot of people. You've got good sites. You got all kinds of stuff. You got a lot of stuff. Now let me see if I can help you make it bigger, grow it. I'm happy to do that because again, the post-disclosure world, which I'm trying to get to, then it's less politics and more change, science, technology, things like that. And I love be able to deal with it then, but without disclosure, it's kind of moot. So anyway, all right, guys, I'm gonna call Danny. Thank you so much. Check in anytime. Send me any links. I can't do that, but there it is.
All right.
All righty. Bye.
See you.
See ya.
I meant to put myself solo. All right. Thank you guys for watching, and everyone have an awesome night. We'll see you soon, and don't forget to call your senators today or tomorrow morning. The first chance you have. This is very important. We need to all get them on board with this and let them know this is a serious issue. I think we should call the news, the media, and everyone tomorrow and try to get this information and this out. This is all our future. I mean, this is the difference between your kids growing up to have the potential to become captain of the Starship Enterprise, or are they going to grow up where their only career and job options are being Winston Smith, living in a 1984 Big Brother police state where the public doesn't have access to any government information and all the secrets are just kept in this vault, secret from the American people. You don't have the right or the access to go see any of that stuff. So you guys decide. Screw the government. Don't listen to them. And call them now. Call them now and tell them how that you guys control the government. You pay their bills. You paid for $20 trillion that's missing from the Pentagon budget that paid for who knows what. all this top secret research that we don't own? No, no, buddy. This is not how it works, guys. Rise up and let's take this back, because this is all of our futures at stake. Thank you for watching.